Like we said before break, we got two guests on tonight. We're about to be joined by activist Emily Lance. Going to go over, I'll talk about the homeless problem we got going on here in America. You know, it's a big deal. And she's a very active activist. And, yeah, so Emily, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Yeah, I was just thinking. On the break, I was thinking, well, you know, out of all my notifications that I get, I think Emily is like at least 10% of them from posting in groups.
I believe it. I'm surprised people haven't like blocked me out of their feed by now.
Maybe they have and you just don't know it yet. I think some people.
It's quite possible.
I noticed that I got some friends that they don't. They used to comment a lot on my stuff, and they don't comment or anything anymore. I'm assuming that they took me out of their newsfeed.
Oh yeah. I'm sure it's a significant portion.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame anybody for doing that, honestly. I'm sure my posts are pretty invasive, but gotta get attention, you know. For
still
for that which
profit.
is worth attention.
Yeah, you really know how to traffic the information. You get the word out there.
Good stuff.
That's the intention, yeah. Yeah, the homeless initiative actually turned out really great. I mean, it's still ongoing. It's a little bit of a hiatus right now, just with the new year and stuff. But I think altogether we had like probably 45 different cities that participated and went out and fed and clothed their homeless citizens. So, I mean, that's a fantastic outcome, and so many activists really just banded together and stepped up.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's really encouraging too. You know, one thing that was really awesome to me throughout this entire experience and helping to organize these events was that I saw that a lot of people that weren't activist inclined were interested in helping, whether they wanted to donate or they wanted to, you know, actually come out and participate in the events. And, you know, something that taught me personally was that you don't have to understand the problem to be a part of the solution.
Right.
I think that's a really important lesson for us all as activists to learn is, you know, to really get people involved in hands-on, in real life projects that everybody can either relate to or agree is an important project, you know, is something that people are going to step up and contribute to. So in Philly at our event, we had some people come out that weren't aware of what's going on, and they sort of became aware just because so many activists were talking about corruption that they learned whether they wanted to or not. But, you know, I think that it wasn't, I don't think it was like a scary thing for them to experience it. It was more like, wow, these activists are out here doing such a great thing for humanity, and I'm going to listen to what they're saying.
Yeah, that's especially with, I think that's something that, I mean, everybody can get behind. I mean, I think I would imagine we all can agree that there is a big problem with it right now. You know, we got some cities that are actually putting up spikes where, you know, to keep homeless people off their property.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Have you actually seen these, Emily?
No, not in the United States. I know that other countries are doing it, and they're all doing all different types of things to drive people out. But there's definitely police enforcement in the United States, and there's a serious effort to just displace the homeless citizen. So, that's one thing that I really saw a lot of in Philly, and especially in going out and helping out with the homeless so many times recently and getting an opportunity to talk to them. I was really shocked when about 10% of them don't speak English, and at least half of them told me that they came from other cities. So, when I asked why, it was because they couldn't stay there. So, I think Philly is definitely one of the more lenient cities as far as homelessness is concerned. But aside from the fact that they're driving people out, in over 50 cities right now, it's actually illegal to feed homeless people. It's not just illegal for them to panhandle, and, it's not just that they're being displaced and they don't have anywhere to go within their cities, but people aren't allowed to feed them. So, it's really awful. So the encouraging thing, though, is in all of the people that did go out, I didn't hear about, one arrest. So I think civil disobedience really works when tons of people in mass go out and break unjust laws. They can't arrest us all.
Right.
Whereas if I go out alone in a city where it's illegal, I'm going to be much more likely to be targeted by police.
Oh, for sure.
So,
yep.
Yeah. But it's a serious problem, especially when you look at the amount of children that are facing homelessness or have faced homelessness this year. The most recent statistics that I read was 1 in 6. 1 in 6 children faced homelessness in 2014. So, those numbers are staggering.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. I know this one dude on Facebook. I've been following him since he's 15, and he's been homeless since he was 15. And he'll post all crazy shit, all the drugs he does, and he city hops from like Salt Lake City to Phoenix to Las Vegas. It's incredible the things he's seen and done.
Well, that's actually a good point, what you just brought up. That's one of the, there's a lot of people who, I've just seen so many different varying comments and responses to these initiatives, and there's a lot of people who say, oh, well, this person's posting on Facebook and they have a cell phone, they can't be homeless. And that's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous mentality to hold. Of course they can. Most major cities have free Wi-Fi or have Wi-Fi accessible at a business. So, I could have an old beater phone from before I was homeless and easily get on the internet. So,
that's true.
And people also have an idea that, if somebody's homeless, that they're going to look, raggedy, and that's not true either. Just because somebody's homeless doesn't mean that they don't bathe themselves. And fortunately, there are tons of people that do donate clothes, and, they can go to shelters and get clothes. And, clothes are definitely still needed, but, there's just a lot of misconceptions. When we're talking about 1 in 6 children being homeless, of course, their parents too are going to be homeless, and a lot of the families who face homelessness, it's because of a situation with like economical issues where it's a single parent and they can't possibly on either a minimum wage job or a low income job, they can't possibly afford rent and to take care of their children, and it leads to homelessness a lot. So, a lot of people aren't drug addicts or alcoholics or anything of the sort. They're just having a hard time and they have nowhere to go. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some misconceptions that way. A lot of people, they think homeless and they see a homeless, like I knew some real assholes and they were like, get a job or whatever. And a lot of them just had bad situations where they had a job and they got taken advantage of and ended up on the streets, and their family left them or something crazy and something.
Another problem with the, get a job response is, what a lot of people don't realize is that in order to get a job, you have to have a physical address. Yeah. And you can provide the shelter as a physical address, but most shelters are full. So,
Yeah.
you know, or they have crazy requirements in order to get into them. So, I mean, that is not really a fair, you know, projection to make. It's just, it doesn't always apply. If shelters are full, how do they get a job without an address? You know, it's a double-edged sword. But, you know, with the shelter situation, I have a friend in Huntsville, Alabama, and she had shared a post of a woman who is highly involved with helping the homeless community in Huntsville, and she went out to their camp to take them stuff and evaluate the situation, and there was 2 or 3 children out in the cold, and out of concern, she called the shelters and asked if she could get them in because they're kids. So the shelter said, well, no, actually we can't because we're so full that the only way that we can get children or anybody in right now is if they have a medical diagnosis on paper. So unless they're diagnosed as sick, we can't help them.
So there are some people that claim that we could house all the homeless people in this country by using all the vacant homes. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm not opposed to it. You know,
how would we
like
work something out like that?
I'd like to help people any way that we could, but you know, a lot of people would disagree to that. So,
yeah,
you know, I don't know how we would go about working out something like that. Honestly, I mean, it would be such a large-scale project. It would involve banks,
right?
You know,
right.
Foreclosures, and banks aren't, you know, the easiest people to work with, especially a lot of those foreclosed houses. From what I understand, in order to acquire one, you know, it's quite the process. There's actually a nonprofit in Philly, one of my friends is affiliated with, and what they do is they take families that do have children, because obviously the children are the first priority. They raise funds and they buy these dump houses that are usually like in the middle of a ghetto, and they put these families in them. So, you know, but coming up with all those funds is so expensive that they can't do it very frequently. And, you know, another problem is that they can't afford to pay for any of the, you know, remodeling of the house, any of the appliances that need to be replaced, any of the electric or utility bills. So, you know, these people now have a shelter, but they don't have any type of commodities within. So, I mean, it's a worthwhile initiative, but, I mean, just looking at how difficult it was for them just to, you know, do one house at a time, it would definitely be quite the project to try to accommodate all homeless citizens in that way. You know, but another thing is a lot of people complain about crime rates, and you know, they're constantly, oh, we need gun control, oh, there's too much crime, blah, blah, blah. But what they don't consider is the root of the problem, and usually, you know, it does have something to do with poverty and hunger. You know, when people are hungry, they'll do anything to get food, and who can blame them? But when you voluntarily, not by force, but voluntarily provide, even if it's just your leftovers to homeless people, it's definitely going to cut down on this crime. You know, because then they're not forced to make abrupt decisions to feed themselves and their families. So, you know, I think that feeding homeless people is really targeting the root of an issue. And, you know, because there is crime in the homeless community. There is crime in poverty-stricken communities, but it usually comes because they're without.
The only homeless person I ever knew was definitely a thief. It's a shame. I mean, I'm obviously not going to judge the rest of the people off the one guy, but it's kind of like it's encouraged in this society. I mean, especially with all the chemicals that they give us and make sure we consume, and because then the mental stability of a person is going to be completely jeopardized, and that will make it harder for them to maintain a job, and so it's really bad that way. And I definitely think it's just like a symptom of a disease, and it's obviously not the root cause. It's clearly it's a symptom. I mean, it's a shame. There really shouldn't be any homeless people at all if we lived in like a moral society, which we clearly are not. But yeah, there are definitely. I agree with you as far as like the homes thing. I mean, that would only be scraping the surface, because then they have to have electricity and whatnot, and that costs money, and like during the winter months, they're gonna freeze to death. Even if you have a home, it could get cold enough to where it's just too cold to live in. And plus, I mean, the whole vacant home things, I look at that and I'm like, the sound of that just reeks of socialism. Of course, socialism could work in a society that wasn't ruled by psychopath control freaks, but that would probably be used against us if it were to happen. I mean, it's a shame.
I mean, I think that one thing is for certain, and that is that the government is not going to help the most least fortunate among society. I mean, they don't help the middle class. Why would they help them? They're not serving them any benefit. They don't care about them. So, that sort of puts the responsibility back on the citizens. And, it's kind of our job to help, because nobody else will. So, I mean, the government won't. So, and community outreach efforts, I think, are so important, because it does tackle the root of a problem, and it's also working from the ground up. When we're helping out the people that are struggling the most in society, it helps to alleviate so many problems, and it prevents the dehumanization of people in general. People walk past homeless people, they don't even make eye contact with them. They just act as if they're not there at all. And I mean, that's got to be awful. I heard the same thing so many times from so many homeless citizens, and it's just that they were so grateful that somebody didn't forget about them. And that's a sad, sad thing to hear, that they just feel forgotten. And they're lost. They really are, because, they can't go to a shelter, so they can't get a job. What are they supposed to do? Most cities are driving them out. Where do these people go? And, something that I've been telling a lot of people to do, especially if they're not interested in having an event, and having a big event, whether it be because of laws in their area or because they just don't have the time or resources, I'm just to give them your leftovers. I give people bring stuff home, put it in the fridge, or just throw it in the trash can, goes in the landfill. Somebody will eat that. And that same person that wants to eat that food might go out and stab somebody because they're so hungry. So give it away, give your food away. If you live in a major city or anywhere that there's a homeless population, give away your food, because they'll eat it, and they're grateful. They do not care that it's leftovers.
Mm-hmm. So there are definitely solutions to this, and I agree with you. The people who needs to step up. Like, for one, if someone, if they need an address to be able to claim they live somewhere, they could. If they're out in the public all day, they could find someone who isn't homeless as a friend, and then be like, "Look, I wanna get a job. Can I just use your house?
Use your address.
Yeah, use your address. Right. I mean, they'll eventually find someone who will be cool with it, I'm sure. I would think.
Well, yeah. I mean, years and years ago, when I lived in a bad part of town in Philadelphia, I had a very good friend who was homeless, and I let him use my address because it wasn't that the shelter in Philly was full at that time, but rather that he didn't like that shelter because of very strict rules, and because within the shelter there was a lot of stealing amongst one another. So,
They're
he
crazy
sort of stuff
there.
at my house. Yeah, I mean, it gets pretty nasty, but you know, people have to just stop and think, like, what if it were me or somebody I loved, and I literally, I was like emaciated and I had no food and my body was shutting down because I'm so hungry. What do you do?
I heard the water runs out, the hot water, I think in 5 minutes. So your showers literally have to be 5 minutes long. That's crazy right there. And the one place I heard of, at least.
Yeah, I never asked about the showers. I mean, I let him take showers at my house, but you know, he was such a just such a down-to-earth guy. I mean, I knew him for years and years and years, and he would not allow himself to come in my house for probably about a year and a half. Of every day, he would just come to my front door, and you know, I'd give him water or tennis rackets, because I picked up tennis rackets from a thrift shop a lot because he just absolutely loved to play tennis.
Right.
But he wouldn't come in. He's like, no, I'm too dirty. I don't want to come in your house. And he was a good friend of mine, but he didn't want to come in. Eventually he did, but I mean, there's a lot of great people that are out there on the streets, honestly. I've never had a problem. I've interacted with so many of them. You know, people have this idea that it's like dangerous, or that, you know, people tell me all the time, don't go out alone. You know, you're such a little female, don't go out alone. I do it all the time. And I've never had a problem. I've never been, you know, there's been nothing but gratitude that I've received, and just genuine love in response, because people know when you're helping them, and they're grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to attack you when you're giving them food, when you've gone out of your way to cook them a meal. They're not going to attack you. It's unheard of, you know. And that's the reason why they are attacking people, is because they're so hungry.
Right.
They have needs, and you know, when you go out and talk to a lot of people that are on the streets, and you ask them what they want, they don't ask for money. That's not what they want. You know, so many people have this idea that they're going to give them money, they're going to go buy drugs, and you know, if that's what they do and you don't have a problem with that, then fine. You know, I really can't blame them for wanting to get high and have something to fill that void, but that's not even what they want usually. They want socks, they want underwear, they want a warm sleeping bag, and they want food and a drink.
Wow. So I mean, I remember seeing a couple weeks ago, and it kills me to see this. It was a kid in another country, and he was so skinny, and he was talking about how all he eats anymore is grass, because there's no food. Yeah, I mean, it's real. I mean, it's crazy to think about how bad it is in other countries right now. Like, yeah, dude, like, it's insane even compared to here. I mean, and it's bad here. So I mean, this is like a worldwide epidemic.
It really is a worldwide epidemic, and it's nice because, you know, this Op Feed the Homeless, hashtag Op Feed the Homeless initiative, it brought out a ton of countries. Canada participated, the United States participated, UK, Ireland, Germany, Australia. I mean, it really is. It's happening everywhere. So, and some places, like France, are not quite as nice as we are, and we're not nice at all.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
But one thing that I saw recently that I wanted to mention that really inspired me is an initiative. It's called the Urban Farming Guys, and it's a group who has crowdfunded money in order to fulfill a certain vision that they had, and that vision was to create a cooperative urban farm in Kansas City. And not only did they, raise a lot of the money and make it come to life, but I mean, they've gone above and beyond and just continue to build and build and build. And, they've bought houses for $1, and they've bought endless property, and they're just turning it into farms. And what they're doing, which in my opinion is so admirable, is they're hiring people to work that are homeless or are drug addicts or are otherwise, displaced in society and aren't able to actually find work. So,
That's pretty awesome.
In doing so, it's drastically lowered the crime rate in Kansas City, which actually had a really bad crime rate. I don't know the actual statistics. I'd have to look again, but it just goes to show that helping people that are committing crime because they are so unfortunate really does lower the crime rate. And the urban farming guys are proof of that. I mean, they really have.
That's awesome.
That example needs to get out there.
It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the video and I was just like floored by how wonderful the project is that they're doing. I mean, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And what's even more awesome about it is that it's crowdfunded, and they're buying really, really cheap land, and in the middle of a ghetto that was dangerous with houses with bullet holes in it, they're turning it into this, beautiful garden oasis, and the people that were committing the crimes are now involved in it. So, that's exactly what a lot of people need to do, and I mean, it's so encouraging and inspiring. It's something that I definitely really want to get involved in, especially after seeing how successful that they've been with their project. Yeah, the urban farming guys, definitely check it out. I mean, they're just like absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I just found it on Facebook, their Facebook page. Yeah, I'll have to check this out after the show.
Yeah, it's great. It's just really great. I mean, they've just had a vision and just kind of like decided to wing it, and they're doing big things. So, I mean, if numerous dedicated activists in every city could just replicate their model, there would be so many great benefits that come from it. And it's not just the benefit of, helping out the displaced amongst society, but it's also that it's helping to collapse the monopolization of food industry.
Yep.
So, and when you have cooperative agriculture in general, you're able to all work as you can, and for your labor, you get food. So you don't have to go and buy imported foods or expensive Monsanto products or, what have you.
Yeah, look, I see a picture of two houses. So they're buying houses for cheap and restoring them. See like a before and after picture here.
Yeah, they're doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, like I said, it started out as just from what I understand, it started out as, an urban farming initiative, and they're just taking over the city. And I mean, that's great though, taking, eyesore houses and getting them for $1 and all working together to make these places beautiful again, and, taking abandoned lots or lots that really should be demolished because they're foreclosed homes on them, or burnt down buildings, or properties with gun holes in them where people can lurk, and they're just restoring it. And I mean, it's working. It's really, really working, and it's exactly what so many people really should aim to do, because it does help with the homeless issue, but it helps with so many other issues as well.
At first when I heard about all this, I had some criticism, because I was thinking, what good is this really? Because they're only eating once a year, but clearly this is doing a lot more. It's bringing awareness, and I mean, getting people to think about all this stuff and getting them involved and help, getting people to come together to at least discuss possible solutions.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, one thing that I did, in organizing the Philadelphia event, and that I advised other people to do, was to seek donations from your community, whether you use the Free Cycle Network or, you actually put you have like a food and coat drive in your place of work or your friend's place of work, or if you use Facebook groups, there's tons of Facebook groups that are for either bartering or buy, sell, trade. And there's also a lot of Facebook pages. And I mean, I've helped probably 50 different people find these pages in their area, so I know that they're everywhere. You can just type in like your county or your city or your town, and there's these awesome Facebook pages with so many members, and people are just basically using the free market to trade within these pages, whether they're bartering or they're selling things to one another or giving it away. And that's how I really was able to reach out and get donations from people in my community. And that's also how I found people to participate, because, you know, when I posted and asked for donations, I obviously included the event link so people, you know, weren't skeptical or thinking that I was a scammer or something. And I also, you know, told everybody, you know, the time, the date, and the location, and invited everybody to come on out, you know, because that's such a great thing to do, is to get the community involved and allow them to really see firsthand the problem and be part of the solution. And a lot of people took to it, and even those who just donated and didn't want to come out, they were really interested to learn about the issue, and most of them had no idea that there was now laws in place in a lot of cities, and there wasn't one single person who agreed with it. You know, everybody thinks it's outrageous if they only know.
I'm seeing it on the news all the time now. I mean, they really are going hard on people, especially the cops. I mean, they'll go into communities and just rip up all the tents. They'll go around shooting them. I mean, not obviously on a genocide level, but on an individual level, you see a lot of instances of homeless people or mentally, depraved people or whatever, and people with mental problems getting shot up with no problem. And there's a video the other day I saw, like a dozen cops shooting something like 30 or 40 bullets into this one homeless guy. It was kind of crazy.
That's awful. Yeah. I mean, I'm really can't say that I'm surprised to hear that. They really just have like no regard for humanity when it comes to homeless citizens. And I mean, I have to say, Philadelphia, the police don't bother us there. There was an ordinance in place for a couple of months that required a ServSafe certificate, like a food handler's license, in order to feed homeless people, but it was actually thrown out. So they don't bother us at all. The cops don't give us problems for feeding the homeless. Now, if a homeless person is panhandling, we'll give them problems. But as far as us feeding them, there's no issues. But in some cities, I mean, it's outright illegal. And then in other cities, you do need an ordinance and to get permission in order to feed the people. So if you don't have that ordinance, you get like a crazy like $1,500 fine.
Wow.
So I mean, people that were faced with that issue, my suggestion to them was, if they're not willing to like cooperate with the law or don't want to go through any hassle, to just make some sandwiches, put them in a backpack, and ride around on your bicycle and hand them out, or walk around, or in a car, because, in cities where it is illegal, while it's great to practice civil disobedience and all get together en masse, if you're really concerned about the law, then there are ways you can still help without getting caught. And obviously, you're going to bring a lot more attention to yourselves if you're all gathered en masse. But again, nobody got arrested that I know of. I don't know anyone. I don't know a single person that got arrested. I heard nothing but positive reports. So I often wonder if all of these laws and ordinances are just scare tactics, and that the mainstream media pushes this stuff, especially with the arrest of the war veteran in Fort Lauderdale, Arnold the Bot, the 90-year-old man who continually was arrested for feeding homeless people this year. After 23 years of doing so, all of a sudden they decided to start arresting him this year. I wonder if they push that just to like incite fear in people, because nobody else has gotten arrested, even in cities where it's illegal.
That's awful, though.
Yeah.
No, I didn't even know what to say
think,
about it. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh. You think some people like living that way? Do you think it's better to be homeless and work a job and to pay taxes than working for a man?
Well, I think that's why a lot of people are homeless. I mean, I think it varies. Some people that I talk to just, they're just so opposed to the system that they'd rather it be that way for them, and they'll, oppose the system at any cost. And then there's some people who are just falling on hard times, and then you have about 30% of the homeless who are war veterans, which is a hilarious hypocrisy. I mean, it's really not funny at all, but I can't help but laugh at the hypocrisy of this country. Here we are, we're sending these guys to war, then they come home and they fought for, freedom, but we can't feed them.
That's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, it is bad, but
the vets have it the worst.
They really do, and I mean, a lot of them have PTSD or otherwise struggling from some type of mental disorder, and a lot of them that I've talked to have admitted to me outright that they are, crack addicts or on some other drug or alcoholics, and they're not shy. I asked them straight up how they got to that position, and they just said after years of being on the street, you get to the point where you turn to drugs and alcohol as a release because life is so miserable that who cares? I need something to make me feel better.
Yep. So, Emily, are you hopeful of this society? Do you think we're going to make it?
I think that if everybody steps up and does things that are like the urban farming guys, that we'll be just fine. And I think that that's the only way that we'll be just fine because, talk is cheap. Actions are priceless, really. And I think that's an important thing for activists to remember, that we can tell people that this is what they should do a million times, but until they see us do it and are inspired to do the same, they're not going to follow our lead. We need to lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm hopeful. I always will be, but initiatives like that and seeing just how it just fell right in place for them. I think that everybody can do that, and we should.
Well, I suspect you're inspiring many people, so,
I certainly hope so.
So any predictions for 2015?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he told me earlier.
Say that again? What, for 2015?
Any predictions? You think anything's going to go down, or is it just going to be another year in the New World Order?
Probably things are just going to get more and more strict, and things are going to get more and more ridiculous until we actually take the initiative to change things. And, I think that's really what it's all about, is that here we are, for myself included, don't get me wrong, myself fully included, here we are talking about the problems, but we're not actually implementing the solutions. And of course things are just going to progressively get worse because we're allowing them to. We're not actually aiding in the change. And some people are, don't get me wrong, but if I spent the last 2 years, if I had spent all of the time preaching, actually doing, so much would have changed. And if we would have all collectively spent that time preaching, actually doing, imagine how much different things would really be, because, we'd have masses of urban farms. We'd be making a serious impact on, Monsanto and the monopolization of food, and we'd be really, really just transforming society. And that's what we need to do. That's what everybody needs to do.
I saw you're an advocate of Bitcoin, so I'm assuming you definitely believe there's promise in that.
I do. I don't really care what alternative currency people use. I don't care if people make a new one. If they want to barter, whatever. Any way to work outside of Federal Reserve notes is admirable, in my opinion. So any way that we can do that, I'm going to support.
Yeah, I think it could be a way to get all the money from the Federal Reserve and give it back to the people. That's what I think. I mean, it could go that way. I hope it does.
It's definitely worth a try. I mean, and that's what we got to do. We just got to try. And, it's great to actually wake people up and, tell them what's going on, but to actually show them a better way, and no offense to anybody, people are followers by nature, and they need leaders. They need to actually see change and physically understand how to be a part of that. So, as many times as we say to people over and over and over again, grow your own food, don't buy this, don't buy that, don't do this. That's not going to actually absorb for them. They need to actually see it done, see how it's done, see a model, see the positive outcome of it.
I 100% agree, and I mean, and you've been through that, and you've seen it all, and right now, I mean, I'm so thankful that we get the chance for you to share this with us, because it's not just us. I mean, at least a few thousand people end up listening to this, and I can only imagine there's got to be a few people that get inspired from this and end up physically doing the same thing that you're talking about. I would love to do that, if I find the time in the near future to do these things. I mean,
the nice thing about cooperative efforts, and I think that a lot of people just don't really necessarily fully understand, is that you only have to work a limited amount of time. See, I've always grown my own food. I love to garden. I love to get involved with growing food. I think it's very personal and rewarding in itself, but I'm interested in cooperative efforts now because it's bringing other people into it who can't dedicate every day of the growing season to tending to their garden. But what they can do is they can dedicate 3 days a month to the garden. And that's what you do. You split up the time and the work, but then everybody splits the harvest. So even people that don't have a lot of time or don't have the actual physical space can still get involved.
True. Definitely have to get involved in some sort of volunteer.
See, okay, so my position, Emily, I'm from Wyoming, and I'm 7 hours from the nearest major metropolitan, and that's Denver. And I've been there a couple times, and I see some of the homeless. It's a different scene, have you ever been through a homeless camp before?
Oh yeah, many homeless camps.
It's a whole different scenery, It's like going to your first rave, isn't it?
Yeah, and it really varies city to city. I mean, some cities don't even allow camps anymore, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting experience, to say the least. Here in Philly, everybody is pretty spread out in the camp, so everybody kind of has their own designated spot. This is my territory, don't infringe upon it. And it's been so very cold here that everybody just kind of cocoons themselves in blankets. So if you didn't know that people were sleeping there, you would just think that there's just a tarp or a blanket on the ground, because they're just so wrapped up like a caterpillar to maintain warmth, because they're so cold. When I go out and offer them food, I always have to disturb them, and I always feel bad doing so, just because I know that they're probably so cold. But they're always grateful anyway. I can't help but feel bad, because they come out of their cocoon, take the food, and 9 out of 10 times they actually take the food with them back into the cocoon, because it's that cold that they still want that shelter of sorts.
Yeah. I only have one experience like that. It was when I went up to Pork Fest the first night there, and I was sleeping out in the tent. It felt like it was 20 degrees below zero, and it probably was. And it was just unbelievable. I don't know how anybody managed that night, let alone myself. I mean, I had 3 or 4 blankets on me, and I was still freezing, and I literally had to be entirely under the blankets and just I had like a path, like a little path through the blankets just to have oxygen from the outside, so it would be somewhat heated by the time it came inside. It was kind of crazy. It was like I was in outer space or something. I don't know. It was
Yeah, they definitely have methods. I mean, there's definitely things that they do of that sort. They've definitely got it down. I mean, they're used to having to maintain warmth, and I mean, some of them do have multiple blankets and they're still cold. But when it's below freezing and there's a wind chill and it's windy, like that is not fun to be outside all night in.
No.
And not be able to go into a warm place much at all, ever, all winter.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that when I go to work tonight. It's about 30 below over here.
Shit.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I got pipes leaking in my basement.
Oh boy.
That sucks.
Reminds me, I'm gonna have to check on that to make sure it's not flooded.
Yeah, that stinks. You really need to shop back that mess up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really dare to walk down there right now, to be honest.
Just wait.
Yeah.
Just tough it out. Yeah, I'll just tough it out. Well, we do got to wrap up here with you, Emily. But anything that you want to plug? Any events, pages, anything?
I mean, I got all kinds of projects going on, but I mean, I don't really. They're the least of my concerns compared to, really community outreach. Just if anybody wants help figuring out how to, I mean, it doesn't have to be like through me, but if you want help figuring out how to get around the laws or organizing an event in your area, you can find the event page. It's #OpFeedTheHomeless, and or just contact me. My name's Emily Lance, and I'm happy to help anybody that wants to get involved with helping the less fortunate in society, because I really genuinely believe that by working from the ground up, that's how we're actually going to make progress in this society.